So another day, another dollar. Done with work for the day. It's about 5:30. I don't know if I've actually mentioned in any of the videos for this series anyways. I live just outside Seattle. And so this is March 2022. And it's a little chilly, a little rainy, normal Seattle weather. So today it's about 44 right now, I think. So if you see me out here with, multiple layers on and my little toboggan hat, it's because it's cold out here in my garage. This is not a finished garage. It's not heated or anything. So it gets a little cold in here, but it's still fun to come out and work. And, I finished my actual work for the day, and I was really excited to get out here and continue working on this because, it's fun. So today I'm going to continue working on the radiator. I actually did a flush of it the other night with just distilled water. Never ever use tap water. Don't use your hose. They add minerals and nutrients into the tank that will cause it to rust and will cause calcium buildup and a lot of other things. So don't do that. Only use distilled water. I was taught a long time ago that in radiators to use vinegar and distilled water to flush them. I still do that. I actually don't know if that's actually considered a best practice these days or not. Back then, the idea was because people usually did put regular water in there and the vinegar helped break down the calcium. Probably don't need to do that anymore, but it's something I've always done, so I still did it. I should probably look it up and see if that's still, recommended or not. But I ended up having to pull the radiator off of this one so that I could get to the starter and replace the starter, which I did yesterday. And so now the radiator is already off, makes it a lot easier to do a flush on it. Once I get it put back in and I start adding the fluid in, I will try to mention where you would have drained it before. I mean, you actually saw me drain it in one of the other videos, but how you burp it is going to be the same. It's just a flush procedure. If your bike is all together, you would, once you have drained all the fluid out, fill it full of distilled water and burp it all, get all the air bubbles out of there, start the bike and run it for about 5 minutes, let it cool down, and then drain all the water out of it, and then go and do what I am getting ready to do, which is put the coolant in. Because I actually had the radiator out, I actually flushed it fully outside. Obviously, that does not get all the fluid that's in here inside the actual impeller bearing and everything. But for this, I'm actually okay with that. So thank you for watching, and we'll see how far I get tonight. So do not get regular water into the radiator, but it's totally okay to use regular water on the outside of the radiator to rinse it off like this. Hose water on the outside is okay, but don't put it in the radiator or anywhere inside your cooling system. All right. So someone asked me today if I was going to explain how water's still running out of the radiator fans. If I was going to explain how to drain the radiator. This is the back side of the radiator. This hose up here comes out and goes up to the top where the radiator cap comes off. This crosses from here across the bike, goes in right here. That part on mine that was a little rusty. This on newer models is not a hose. It's actually a drain plug. You just pull that plug out and you drain everything out of the radiator. On this one though, the 2015 and 2016, this hose is what connects to that pipe here on the oil cooler. So it connects up right there. And to drain it, you basically disconnect this, pull it off of the oil cooler, and that's how you drain it. Now to fill it, you actually don't do anything here. Now to fill the radiator, you actually have to remove the radiator cap, put this somewhere. There is actually a test you can do on this to see if it is functioning correctly. But if you don't have that test tool, pretty much just squeeze it with your fingers. Make sure that it actually requires some pressure. If it just goes flat without anything, that means that spring is bad. You also want to make sure that this little O-ring, this little rubber gasket is actually on here. This hose that goes back to the overflow that I talked about in the other video, you have to pinch that off. to make sure that there's no fluid flowing down there because you want it to flow all the way through. Once I have that hose put back on to come through this way to connect up there, as you add water, the actual coolant back in here, it's actually going to fill up, and then you have to squeeze this hose to burp it, which I'll demonstrate here in a little bit. I'm probably going to do the clutch cable first, but that's the basic process. And you have to keep doing it until you get no more bubbles out of here. And it takes a long time. So let's talk clutch cable for a second. I've already removed my handlebars, but the clutch is obviously on the left, you know, where you actually squeeze the clutch control, but it actually crosses over the bike and comes down to right here. So this is the actual clutch cable end, connects right there, and that's when you squeeze on your handlebar, that's the part that's actually actuating down. This is what disengages. The clutch basket sits right inside here. So this goes down. There's a little jam nut there we have to disconnect. It comes down under here. There's a couple of tie wraps or wire ties here that actually hold it in place. This is actually your adjustment to the clutch right there. Hopefully you can see that little jam nut. So I have to cut all of those off. It then comes up and it goes right inside where the radiator goes. So it sits right up in here, and then it comes out at the top and then crosses underneath the handlebar over to your left side. So I'm going to replacing that with a Barnett smooth clutch. This is, you can buy it directly from Barnett Clutches. This is a braided silver. It's actually very high quality. I've already put one on the other Indian that I have. It has a low resistance, I believe it's Teflon coating inside the wire to actually help make the clutch feel smoother. It still has a nice adjustment down here on the end. That'll tighten up once we actually get it on the bike. And so here's where you do your adjustments after we get this all back on there. And then that goes up to the actual clutch basket. How do you get this out of there? Take a pair of pliers. You basically grip this. You push down and see how now it pops out? You push down, watch your finger, make sure you don't get it snapped in there. And you're basically pushing that little end out. Once you get it out of the way, let that go and it'll rotate all the way up. So now the clutch cable end is actually disconnected. Then there's a 12 mil jam nut here. These usually are not on there super tight. Well, that was barely on there actually. Undo it with my finger. And then basically pull down from the bottom once I get that jam nut all the way off. So once you get the jam nut all the way loose, pull down until there's just a cable, and then the cable slides out. And so there's your jam nut. That's what holds it in place. And this is one of your adjustments on the clutch, because you can actually move this up and down as you tighten it in there to determine where it is when you put it back in. So now I have to cut those wire ties and get it off. Pay attention to where it goes underneath the bike, because you want to run back through that same area. And I just noticed this one is actually cut. So a really good thing that I'm replacing it. I'll try to get a picture of that. But yeah, the actual underneath the bike, the actual clutch cable is actually cut. So that'll rust for sure if you have a cut like that in there. So now that the other end of the clutch is loose, again, normally this would be on your bar sitting here like this, right? So it's easier to look at right now because we're not on the bar, so I can flip it over. This is the holder, right? So you basically pull out, if I can do this with one hand, Okay, so this is the actual part we're trying to get out of there. Now that there's no tension on the other side, you can pull back on this. There's a cut in the top of that. Pull it over, rotate it, and then it should just wiggle out. See, came right out. Now, this area in here, you want to clean that really well. Use some brake cleaner or something, get down in there. This one in particular is pretty rusted. It's got some corrosion in there. You can see the end of this cable is looking pretty ratty. Ugh. Yeah, that's pretty rough to pull. It's funny because pulling the clutch on this one was way harder than the one on my other Scout. Now I know why, because it's actually the clutch cable, hopefully, not the clutch springs. So you clean all that out. And when you go to reassemble it, you only want to put a little bit of grease here. Basically, so that this end is being protected from elements and from rusting. Don't put any grease here, like where the cable actually goes in and out. Especially on these Barnett cables, they're already coated, so you don't need to put anything there. Hopefully that makes sense. So let's follow the clutch cable. Here, out to the handlebars. Comes down, it goes behind this Indian logo. See, right there. Comes out the side here. Goes down, goes behind the triple tree, the lower tree. And then it comes in here and it runs down the side of the radiator. So it's pretty easy to do while it's out. Okay, a couple things I thought of as I've been going through parts. And I did put the clutch cable in already. Sorry, I forgot to film that, but it pretty much goes in the way the other one came out. I'll show you the adjustment on the clutch later after we get the handlebars back on. One thing I just realized is I actually can't put the fluid back in the radiator because that one hose has a hole in it. And if I fill the radiator now, and then when the hose comes in, I'm gonna have to drain it again. And I really don't wanna do that because it's a pain in the butt to get the fluid back in there. So I have to do that one in, well, whenever the hose comes in. I did order it. They don't give you an ETA on when it's gonna come in. I did call the local Indian dealer. They of course don't have them. So he told me if he ordered it, it would take 7 days. I ordered it directly from Indian. I hope it's also 7 days. We'll see. But as long as I'm here and I have it taken down this far, I think I'm gonna go ahead and take the exhaust off so I can replace the exhaust gaskets and the nuts. The nuts are really corroded. You usually don't need to replace the exhaust gasket, but as long as I'm gonna have it apart, I don't ever like to reuse those gaskets. Once you take them out, just go ahead and replace them. They're a cheap part, they're like $2. And so then it'll be good for, you know, probably 25, 30,000 miles. It should probably never need to be changed again. But the nuts that are on there are really badly corroded and, you know, nothing I can do about that except change them. So that's what I did. I did order those when I first got the bike in back in January. So I'm gonna continue on and keep recording as I go. I found a little bit of new damage here that I didn't notice before. Rust around the exhaust header there. And it looks like the exhaust gasket might have been leaking a little bit. It looks like at some point they might have hit something because you can see there's a ding right there on the exhaust. So that's hard to tell. You know, did they hit something or not? But there's another one under it back here. Could have been the bike falling over. Could have been they hit something, who knows, right? Or something hit it. But just because I already have it this way down, and I tend to do this a lot, I might as well take it further down and pull the exhaust off so I can see the exhaust gaskets. And once you pull off an exhaust like that, I always replace the gaskets. So I just keep finding more things to do. But that's okay, because this is fun for me. So, you know, why not? That one was on. Usually not on there that tight. Boy, they put these things at a weird angle. Another very rusty nut.
A few moments later.
There we go.
A few moments later.
Oh, I guess that's why this disconnects. That makes sense to me now. I never understood why this was in a separate piece, but now I think I do. Always keep some PB blaster around for situations like this. Almost off. Oh, maybe now I can actually get it off. Just enough room. All right. Not too bad. Not too bad up in there. See what the front one looks like. Not too bad. Not too bad. I can see that ring though. See the gasket? Actually, the gasket's not in bad shape. That's what a new one looks like. Clean this up. There's a lot of rust on here. A lot of rust on here. Clean all that up. Some people might ask, why take the swing arm off? Why get in here, right? So, last winter, I took apart a bike, an adventure bike. A Triumph Tiger, actually, a Tiger 800. It's a 2014. And Tigers go off-road all the time, at least mine did. And you ended up with a lot of dirt and sand and water and all kinds of things inside that swing arm bearing. And that affects the performance of this swing arm to be able to go up and down to actually control the rebound of the back of the bike. A side effect of that is that once this bearing starts to wear, you actually end up with vibration in the bike as well. So on adventure bikes like the Tiger, and I have a new Tiger over there, usually do this every season or every other season, depending on how much off-road you do and how much you get in water. And since this is a flood damaged bike, I figured I should probably just do it, right? So I already ordered the needle bearing for here. I already ordered the replacement bushing. Like I already ordered all that just because I figured if it was a flood bike and it got into water, this bike is not designed to be in water like the Tiger is. So there's probably all kinds of intrusion in there. And the fact that the outermost washer here is rusted tells me it did get a lot of water in there at some point. It could have been while the person was riding, who knows. But that's why I'm taking it apart. So this is the stock exhaust hanger I'm getting ready to pull off, which now would also be a great time to, if I wanted to put a 2-into-1, now would be a great time to do it, but I don't think I'm going to do that. I think I'm just going to take it back to stock. I mean, who knows? I could change my mind. But... So, there is the stock exhaust hanger. Put that down. Now, gotta undo this one. Again, more PB blaster. I'm gonna have to move a bunch of stuff out of the way so I can really get my weight on it. Okay, well, it's about 9:45, and when I went and got the box end wrench and tried to put my weight on it, I slipped and I cut my hand. So I guess that's it for tonight, and maybe this will turn into a lesson about when did you last have your tetanus shot? Because I don't remember when the last time was I had mine, but I have a feeling it's going to be later on tonight or tomorrow morning. So usually I wear gloves just for that very reason, so that if I ding something, I don't cut my hand. But well, it's life, right? It happens. So that's where we're going to stop tonight. I got the exhaust off. I replaced the clutch cable. I guess that's about it. But hey, I was having fun. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you have any questions, please post them. I'll show you how to adjust the clutch cable in another video.